With everything in place, Zhuofan's party entered an idle period alongside Hell Valley's elder, waiting for the eruption of diamond sand. For a while, everything was quiet and peaceful. Xie Tianyong was feeling bored standing guard every day and thought of training his martial arts, but his worries about the diamond sand erupting and Zhuofan hugging it won over that feeling in the end. Because he knew Zhuofan's mannerism but not his intention, and because he didn't understand Zhuofan either, he held some mistrust. While Xuaningxiang seemed to have forgotten about the diamond sand and played with the burrowing mouse every day. Xie Tianyong tried to call the critter over, but the little guy gave him an eye roll which only worked to embarrass him. It was his spirit animal, yet it was closer with Xuaningxiang. So he switched targets to Zhuofan, watching him with a perplexed look. Zhuofan was a riddle, be it his background or his origins. In no way would he believe Zhuofan's words of coming from a small clan. Among their group, Zhuofan was the calmest. Over the past 10 so days all he did was meditate. As if he didn't care about the diamond sand at all, while in fact it also concerned him the most. Zhuofan, in Xie Tianyong's mind, was becoming more valued, with how rare such a character existed in the Tianyu Empire. At least he didn't have the state of mind to cultivate while waiting for the diamond sand like Zhuofan. Cultivating with his anxiety and restlessness would only cause a deviation. While Zhuofan. Xie Tianyong scrutinized Zhuofan, feeling envy. A sudden sound woke Zhuofan up. At last, the 6th layer of qi condensation. Xie Tianyong's cheek trembled and showed a resigned expression. To break through at such a crucial time, he would never reach Zhuofan's state of mind for years to come. This was how the trio spent the next month. Xie Tianyong was bored out of his mind. Xuaningxiang and the critter played like crazy, sporting smiles every moment, while Zhuofan sat there in meditation. Rolling his eyes, Xie Tianyong was driven to the point of insanity. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have pushed the burrowing mouse that hard. The critter broke up with him so thoroughly that it wouldn't even come to relieve his boredom. Can't take it anymore. Xie Tianyong wailed. Then a sudden bang resounded across the mountain range and the ground started shaking. It's time. Zhuofan jumped to his feet. Xuaningxiang, who was playing with the critter, was a bit startled and turned to Zhuofan and Xie Tianyong. But the two didn't look afraid, only excited. Hell Valley's 7th elder stationed at Golden Spring Pool flew higher. Ahahaha, I have waited 2 months for this. Men, cast the nets to gather the diamond sand. The 7th elder roared and the bone-tempering guards bowed, understood. They then began throwing golden nets into the Golden Spring Pool until it was all shining golden. At the same time, at the stream, Zhuofan asked, Did you prepare a net? Ha ha ha, why would I come for diamond sand if I hadn't? Xie Tianyong laughed and cast his net. Diamond sand erupted along with lava and it needed special nets to filter it. Zhuofan also cast his own golden net into the stream. Xie Tianyong watched him doubtful. Brother Zhuo, what will you do now? Watch closely. Zhuofan smiled with confidence and his hand performed signs. A heaven and earth reverse, mountains and rivers switch, yin and yang shift, twin array exchange. The spirit stones laid underground shined ever brighter and each beam of light pierced the horizon. All around the Golden Spring Pool, 3,221 light pillars towered towards the sky. The 7th elder felt uneasy, but as Diamond Sand's eruption was imminent, he had no time to mind parlor tricks and fixed his eyes on the hot spring's mouth. Suddenly, a column of water sprouted from the spring, just that the heat from it was far lower. People were stunned seeing this. Reason dictated that along with the eruption of Diamond Sand, lava should flow out too. The hot spring's water would be so hot that not even a bone-tempering expert should be able to approach. But why was there only plain water? Elder blinked in a daze, then facepalmed. Damn it, someone's playing us. He rushed higher in the air and saw thousands of light pillars in the distance. There. Elder seethed in rage as he charged. You're dead if you think you can play me. Meanwhile, the stream before Zhuofan's party was gone, replaced by a dark hole that was soon spewing lava along with fine and shiny particles. Diamond sand. Xie Tianyong was overjoyed as he turned to Zhuofan in shock. Brother Zhuo, you're great. How is the diamond sand erupting here? Grinning, Zhuofan flatly said, This array is called Heaven and Earth Shift. It is a mere first-grade array, but it can reverse yin and yang, shift mountains and rivers. I only switched diamond sand's flow to here. Zhuofan said it dully, but Xie Tianyong was shocked to the core. As far as he knew, only 6th grade and above arrays could do that, and they were all lost. But Zhuofan not only did it but used just the first-grade array in the process. He started to recall Zhuofan mentioning Veiled Dragon Pavilion's alliance agreement. It might not be far-fetched for Veiled Dragon Pavilion to make such an agreement if they knew of Brother Zhuo's outrageous talent. Xie Tianyang watched Zhuo Fan closely with a secret smile. He didn't think he'd meet such a man when he decided to get the diamond sand. There may not be a second person in the empire who can set this array. Xie Tianyang then spoke. Brother Zhuo, would you like to come into Sword Marquis's abode as a venerable? Xuaningsheng was tongue-tied. Zhuo Fan was so young yet he'd get to be a venerable in one of the 7 houses. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes and almost made Xuaningsheng stumble with his next words, save it. Veiled Dragon Pavilion tried it already and I refused them all the same. That's why they changed to having an alliance agreement. Brother Zhuo, you're showing off here. Xuaningsheng clearly doubted his words. But Xie Tianyang nodded and said, all right, I will send someone with an alliance agreement when I get back. Where do I send it? Wengay City's Luo clan. I will return when I am finished with my affairs. Xie Tianyang hesitated, then I will wait for your return. I want to sign it with you. With your skills, when you leave the Luo clan in the future, we won't lose out then. Zhuo Fan shook his head. Why are all 7 houses the same? Xuaningsheng gasped as her face twitched. Sword Marquis's abode is so unruly, why would they want to sign an agreement with an outsider? And it wasn't with a clan, but with a single man. But what escaped her thoughts was that precisely because Xie Tianyang was from the 7 houses that he valued Zhuo Fan so much. The average clan would never see Zhuo Fan's value. At this time, the dark cave let out a final eruption of lava. Seeing this, Zhuo Fan urged, get the nets. Why the hurry? Xie Tianyang waved and continued with a smile, the nets are made of spirit metal. They won't break in lava. Zhuo Fan snorted, you think I don't know that? If we don't go now, we may not have a life to enjoy it. Xie Tianyang was startled as Zhuo Fan continued, you think all elders from Hell Valley are blind? Who wouldn't notice the light pillars? Just wait and you will have a profound heaven expert hovering overhead. Xie Tianyang rushed in with his hand signs to recover the net. As the nets rose, the trio saw the glitters among the lava. And on the net's threads was shining sand. What do we do now? Xie Tianyang was happy seeing the net but was aware of the imminent danger. Zhuo Fan dragged them for 12 hours to this place for a reason most obvious, to buy time. Even a profound heaven expert would need 2 hours to reach here. During this time, they could retrieve the diamond sand and leave. But where to run was the question. Where was safe? Noticing Zhuo Fan gazing at the stream's opposite bank, the pair shouted, the second area? Wrong. Zhuo Fan said dryly, the third area. Gasping, the two stared at Zhuo Fan in a daze. Is this guy crazy? The second area is dangerous enough, but going to the third is suicide. But they both were oblivious to the fact that Zhuo Fan's aim from the start was in that area. Level spiritual beast, Thunder Skylark. We'll divide the diamond sand first then flee. Zhuo Fan was getting eager to get his share of the spoils when he saw the glittering dust and gave the two the cold shoulder. Xuaningsheng and Xie Tianyang smiled bitterly. Ever since they ran into Zhuo Fan, they were led by the nose. Zhuo Fan did whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. The same went for abusing the critter and setting an array to steal all diamond sand. But all turned out fine in the end. Everything he did was flawless and brought success. So, despite Zhuo Fan making no sense, which added to their worry, the two believed he had a failsafe in place. So Xie Tianyang dropped the issue and was excited by all the glittering dust before him. Whoosh! The dust flowed like water out of the net and filled a 1-meter-tall bucket, and that was just a third. So everyone started taking out any containers they had from their rings, and the coveted diamond sand soon filled vessels of all shapes and sizes. Seeing such a haul, Xie Tianyang was smiling in excitement. At first, he hoped to use the burrowing mouse to get a bit of diamond sand, and now, with a weirdo like Zhuo Fan around, they got everything in no time at all. In refining a 5th-grade spiritual weapon, a handful of diamond sand was enough to raise its power, making it a top 5th-grade spiritual weapon. But with heaps of diamond sand, who knew how many such weapons could be made, and he could even add as much dust as he wanted in the refining process. When refining, people would add a gram, fuse it well, then add another gram, thereby increasing the amount of diamond sand progressively. With this much yield, it's even possible to make a pure diamond sand spiritual weapon, ha ha ha. Xie Tianyang started laughing. Despite his high position in Sword Marquis's abode and not being poor in the least, compared to the diamond sand before him, it was no different than being a beggar. Zhuo Fan saw Xie Tianyang laugh, his eyes flashed as he turned back to the glittering sand with a smirk. Sword Marquis's abode's disciples are ignorant of the world outside. Zhuo Fan then stashed half of the sand into his ring while he spoke in a flat tone. This is my share and the rest is yours. Xie Tianyang blinked, then smiled. No worries, it's fine if you take a bit more. They had struck it rich this time. So, even with Zhuofan taking half, it was more than enough for the other two. But in the end, this wealth was divided in two, with Xuaningxiang having no interest in it. Compared to having such a precious item, she'd rather get out of Blue Expanse City. Zhuofan only took his share, leaving hers untouched. Xie Tianyang secretly nodded and took the rest of the diamond sand and asked Zhuofan, how do we escape now? Whoosh! Zhuofan's hand held a small bottle and took 3 red pills out. He ate one and gave the rest to the 2. This is a first-grade pill, energy-concealing pill. It can hide our auras for a whole day and let us pass through the second area while not attracting spiritual beasts. Xie Tianyang looked at the pill with amazement. That's great. Where did you get it? Albi's mountain range was a treasure trove that had the continent's cultivators drooling over for thousands of years. Too bad the spiritual beasts were a bit savage and kept the cultivators at bay. If they knew such a pill existed, they'd be fighting over it. Moreover, it was just a first-grade pill. As far as Xie Tianyang knew, the continent didn't have such a pill, or wouldn't the cultivators be flocking here by now? Xuaningxiang was also amazed. Zhuofan scratched his nose. I made it. It is unique to me. Xie Tianyang shouted, you're a freaking alchemist too? Perhaps he was a bit too amazing that Xie Tianyang even had to resort to curses. But Zhuofan couldn't care less, which was evident from his shrug. Yep, the more skills the better. The shock got to Xie Tianyang so badly that his cheek was twitching. Who the hell is this punk? He's a chi condensation cultivator, yet can match me, a bone-tempering cultivator. And now he's an alchemist too. Not only that, but he also sets up a lost array and refines unprecedented pills. Until now he thought that he had met a paragon like himself, just another strong opponent like the few geniuses he found his match in the 7 houses. But with Zhuofan revealing that he was also an alchemist, gave Xie Tianyang's psyche a heavy blow. Next time around, he'd never say that he was a genius, at least not when Zhuofan was present. Xie Tianyang swallowed the pill and jumped across the stream and into the second area. Let's go. Zhuofan and Xuaningxiang were startled. What's up with him? They didn't know that this proud and conceited genius had just fallen from Cloud 9 all the way down into the mortal quagmire. 2 hours later, a gray figure landed next to the stream. It was the 7th elder. His face was red with rage when he saw the steaming lava, and his hawk eyes flashed with killing intent. Someone pulled the diamond sand here. Squinting, the 7th elder huffed a few times then calmed down. But the coldness on his face grew thicker. He looked around and muttered, they just got the diamond sand and shouldn't have run far. If they stayed in the first area, death was only a matter of time. Then, the 7th elder turned to the opposite bank with a sneer. I think you can get rid of me with parlor tricks? Then he soared into the second area. 100 miles out, Zhuofan's party was running when a sudden cawing came from behind, followed by crows taking to the sky. Zhuofan stopped and looked back with a frown. What? Xie Tianyang and Xuaningxiang also stopped. What's going on? Zhuofan muttered, that elder is charging right into the second area. What? Xie Tianyang was anxious, so what now? He will catch up in no time. Zhuofan sighed, I don't know. I thought that the elder would first search the first area after inspecting the lava just to be sure, thus buying us enough time. Moreover, the second area is notoriously dangerous, so I guessed he wouldn't come here to search so soon. That is why I picked this area to flee. And by the time he'd figure it out, we'd have a 6-hour lead. And for his safety in the second area, he'd be flying far slower to avoid 4th-level spiritual beasts. At that point, we'd be in the third area and he'd ultimately given up the chase. In that area, he will be in the same boat as us, food for the spiritual beasts. So he'd never go in after us. Zhuofan squinted, yet he went for the second area from the start. In this case, we only have 1 hour lead. If he catches up to us here, we're dead. Brother Zhuo, haven't you heard of the 7th elder and what he is famous for? Xie Tianyang asked. Zhuofan was startled. I only knew that a Hell Valley's elder was stationed here, but not the details. Sighing, Xie Tianyang shook his head. Know your enemy and yourself and you shall win 100 battles. It's normal for you to make a mistake when you don't even know how dreadful the 7th elder is. Dreadful? Zhuofan frowned. Xie Tianyang said in a severe tone, he is greatly admired in Hell Valley, and even Valley Lord Yuanchang consults with him. Or he wouldn't have left such an important city in the 7th elder's charge. You're saying he's strong? Zhuofan's brow twitched. Xie Tianyang shook his head, not his strength but his schemes. He is cunning and deceitful, known as the insidious demon. His mind is filled with schemes. Many elders of the 7 houses have fallen in his ploys. Even Veiled Dragon Pavilion's Elder Joe lost his purple lightning gold eye because of the Seventh Elder's plot. Many hate him to the bone, but even more fear him. No wonder Zhuofan's plan fell through. He is another who plays open schemes. This kind of plot is useless against him. But the die was cast and Zhuofan's only choice was to beat him at his own game. Brother Zhuo, our only choice is to leave Lady Ning'er behind. With our speed, we may be able to escape the Seventh Elder's clutches. Xie Tianyang's eyes flashed as he spoke firmly. Xue Ningxiang shuddered and grabbed Zhuofan's arm with a pitiful look. Brother Zhuo, you promised to get me out. Brother Zhuo, this is not the time to be soft. Leave her behind. She will stall the Seventh Elder while we escape. Xie Tianyang's mind was set. Zhuofan squinted as he contemplated, then sneered at Xie Tianyang. Humph, if not for my energy-concealing pill, you'd have thrown me away too. Xie Tianyang's mouth pursed. Zhuofan laughed it off and said, I won't abandon anyone. As for that elder, I have my way to deal with him. I will fight him right here, with an array. Xie Tianyang nodded after a careful ponder. He knew of Zhuofan's skills in arrays and was certain that Zhuofan was an array grandmaster. Xue Ningxiang was beaming as she heard him and was swinging Zhuofan's arm on and on with a red tint on her cheeks. But they both failed to notice Zhuofan's hot smile at the end. Whoosh! Beneath the shade of the forest, a gray figure flitted by. The moment a spiritual beast saw him, it would jump on him with greedy eyes. But the beast would ultimately fall to the ground lifeless with an extra fist imprint on its chest. The Seventh Elder's eyes turned darker, but his speed remained the same. Unlike Zhuofan, his flight attracted no little amount of trouble. Yet this only left a trail of third-level spiritual beasts' corpses behind. He was lucky enough that he did not meet a fourth-level spiritual beast, or it would have been a slightly different outcome. Whoosh! Suddenly, he landed in an open area. He checked for tracks, making sure nothing escaped his sight. Hee, 3 little brats. Want to run? The Seventh Elder sneered. He stood upright and scrutinized his surroundings with a cold eye. Will you come out yourselves, or shall I drag you out? His yell bathed the trees in killing intent and scared off nearby spiritual beasts. Ha, I see the Seventh Elder is not without his reputation. No wonder you are called Insidious Demon, finding how many we are just from a few faint signs. I am in awe. Zhuofan's laughter resounded through the air. The Seventh Elder frowned and paid closer attention. Kid, you have just entered the 6th layer of chi condensation. Good ears. The hidden Zhuofan felt his heart go cold. This elder was shrewder than he'd thought, a hard opponent, but he still kept his cool. Seventh Elder must be tired after such a long chase. And fighting here will attract 4th-level spiritual beasts. It will be quite an annoyance to you. What if we strike a deal? Which is? The Seventh Elder snorted and his cold eyes flitted around the area. Zhuofan smiled. Seventh Elder chased us for so long all for the diamond sand. If we give you half, are you willing to let us go? You must be joking. The diamond sand was mine to begin with. You want to bargain with what you stole from me. The Seventh Elder laughed while being shrouded in thick killing intent. I will not only get my diamond sand but wring the life out of you brats. Then the Elder rushed towards a lush tree. He struck it with his palm and made it explode to reveal Zhuofan sitting on the rock behind it. Hee, brat, you knew of my sharp hearing yet still talked about conditions with me. The Seventh Elder went for another palm attack, this time targeting Zhuofan. But the latter was calm as ever. He even smiled. Hee, I've never been afraid of revealing myself from the start. Zhuofan's hand shifted and... boom! With a loud noise from behind Zhuofan, a towering flame rose 50 meters high. And with a bird cry it took the shape of a phoenix. It spread its wings and launched 2 fire pillars at Seventh Elder. Array? The Elder was startled as he didn't foresee the weak brat would know about arrays. From the look of its power it had to be in 5th grade. No longer careless, he struck the pillars with his palms. Boom! Raging flames exploded and the Elder was thrown back with burned palms. Looking up, the Elder's carefree eyes from before sported a hint of severity now. I took you lightly. The Seventh Elder squinted, and never imagining a 6th layer of chi condensation youth was a 5th grade array master. Too bad it won't be enough to beat me. The Seventh Elder soared and made a sign. A fiendish demonic shadow rose behind him from the twisting black tendrils of energy. Wails echoed around him and made the temperature drop. Zhuofan's eyes squinted and his tone lowered. Such a malevolent demonic method, is this from Hell Valley's inheritance? Hee, why do the dead need to know so much? The Seventh Elder cackled and pointed. The demonic shadow rushed at Zhuofan with a shriek. Zhuofan responded with a hand sign. The fire phoenix cried and spat flames. Bam! Flames and shadow collided in an anticlimactic way. When the fire touched the demon, hissing was heard as if it was met with ice. The seventh elder looked proud of this while Zhuofan squinted in Ningo, now. A faint cry echoed and from another site not far from Zhuofan, a fierce gale hammered through the woods and exposed Xuaningxiang sitting on a stone. At Zhuofan's call, she made the hand signs he had taught her. A chilling wind picked up and flew like a blade as it fused into the fire phoenix's attack. The fire pillar expanded 10 times in a blink and started pushing back the demonic shadow. The seventh elder's face turned grave and made hand signs to strengthen the demonic shadow. But with the help of Xuaningxiang, Zhuofan was getting the upper hand and the seventh elder started sweating. He never saw it coming. Another person was controlling the array. But before he could think of a countermeasure, Zhuofan shouted again. "Xie Tianyang, he's yours." Ha ha ha, I was waiting for this. See how I splatter the brains of a profound heaven expert. Under Xie Tianyang's incessant cackling, lightning burst and revealed him sitting on the other side of Zhuofan and across from Xuaningxiang. Xie Tianyang made a hand sign and launched a 50-meter-long lightning dragon. With a roar, it flashed right into the demonic shadow. Boom! As lightning entered the shadow, it triggered an explosion. The demonic shadow could not overcome the multiple increases in power and was blown into black pieces, soon becoming nothing but ash. The seventh elder spatted blood. This defied all logic. Today, 3 brats heard him. But the brats were far from done and battered him with the thunderflame gale again. If he didn't do something now, he'd be heavenly wounded, he may even die. The seventh elder braced himself and waved the centipede-like chain that suddenly appeared in his hand. Boom! The thunderflame gale attack was blown away as the elder took a few steps back. Zhuofan's side also shivered as each of them felt blood stagnating in their chest. It was a tie. 4th grade demonic treasure? Zhuofan turned serious. The seventh elder gasped and barked, "Good, well done. I've traveled the world for so long but today, 3 brats have reduced me to this state." He turned to Zhuofan, "I admit you're strong. If we continue, it will end with both sides dead. It's better to take your previous deal. Give me half of diamond sand and I will go." The 3 exchanged glances. Xuaningxiang and Xie Tianyang didn't want to offend Hell Valley and nodded. Zhuofan showed an amiable smile. "All right, let's make the deal." He then jumped off the stone. The seventh elder took back his weapon and flew towards Zhuofan. When they were 10 meters apart, suddenly both their eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Die Brat! Finish him!" Shouting at the same time, the seventh elder revealed his demonic treasure and flung it at Zhuofan while the latter made hand signs. The flames and the centipede chain clashed. Xie Tianyang and Xuaningxiang were startled. Even though they missed the first clash, they soon sent lightning and wind blade toward the elder. The seventh elder couldn't dodge and had to destroy their attacks with his chain once again, but he was also forced to retreat to the skies. Eyeing Zhuofan, the elder's face turned green and white from rage. "Bastard, who would believe you? Hehehe, takes a demonic cultivator to know one." Zhuofan smirked. Xuaningxiang and Xie Tianyang witnessed this in a daze. Who the hell are they? One is more despicable than the other. None of them is worth trusting. Both of them had only one thought since the beginning: kill. They're too damn vile, treacherous, insidious. Had one of them trusted the other, then their side would have died by now. This thought made the 2 gasp and their eyes darted at Zhuofan. Thank God we have one just as vile and insidious among us. Or we'd be dead for sure. I need to calm down first. The seventh elder took a deep breath and inspected the area with wrinkled brows. He found that the recovery of diamond sand was becoming a headache, and when he knew the trio ran into the second area, he confirmed it. With his experience, he could easily discover their meager cultivation. And with the highest among them being the 7th layer of bone tempering stage, it was no different than squeezing 3 insects. What was unbelievable though, one of them had a deep knowledge of arrays along with a cunning mind, unlike a rash and ignorant youth he posed to be. This led to the current predicament. With the 3 working together to control the array, he would never get the upper hand. However, he thought of something and his hawk eyes flashed sinisterly. "You are Shui Clan's 3rd young miss." The 7th elder ignored Zhuofan and switched targets, sizing Xuaningxiang with a smile. "I remember seeing you 5 years ago. You were just a child back then. My, how you've grown into a fine lady." Xuaningxiang's heart seized and lowered her head to avoid his piercing gaze. Zhuofan shouted, "Seventh elder, if you have something to say it to my face. Don't go around scaring girls." Yet the 7th elder's eyes never left Xuaningxiang. "And Ningo, why do you bother going against me? Shui Clan is a vassal of Hell Valley. We always took care of your Shui clan. And yet here you are resorting to this. His eyes flashed with murder as he spoke. Xuaningxiang shivered and could no longer keep the hand sign up. Zhuo Fan knew that the seventh elder was threatening Xuaningxiang and rushed to say, attack. He and Xie Tianyang synced their hand signs, launching lightning and fire at the seventh elder. But Xuaningxiang was still in a daze, her hands trembling. Xie Tianyang thought, damn, Xuaningxiang is worried for her clan and has no will to fight. Without the wind's help, there'll be a sharp decline in power. The seventh elder was fighting a psychological battle, grasping the trio's weakness. Fire and lightning combined as it neared the elder, but his centipede chain just flew at it and the attack was nulled. The seventh elder stood still in the sky while Zhuo Fan and Xie Tianyang spat blood. Ah, that's bate. The seventh elder cackled, Iningo, you made the right choice. These brats will wash their hands over this and leave from here, while your clan will stay forever. Zhuo Fan looked at the shivering Xuaningxiang and urged, Iningo, don't listen to the old goat. He knows who you are and will destroy your clan either way. The only way to save the Shui clan is to kill him here and now. Remember my words, the Thunderflame Gale Array needs 3 people to work together, and as long as the 3 are in sync, not even a profound heaven expert can escape. Another shiver reeked Xuaningxiang's frail body and now she stood still. The seventh elder's words scared her, but she had finally recovered. Zhuo Fan smirked and shouted, if this old coot lives, your clan is no more. Boom! His words echoed in her ears and Xuaningxiang rose her head to show killing intent for the first time as she muttered non-stop, he can't leave. He has to die, he must. D. Xuaningxiang roared the last word and completed the hand sign. A green panther roared behind her and sped towards the seventh elder, 10 times stronger than before. The elder panicked, noticing the true power of the array in Xuaningxiang's hands. From the start, the 2 brats used all they had in fighting me, yet she hadn't. Xuaningxiang was a kind and gentle soul, not willing to kill even her enemy. But the seventh elder's words struck a chord in her frail heart that she was close to losing her will for fighting. It was then that Zhuo Fan woke her up and lit a fire in her. The dissonance in her heart led to unleashing her full power. To protect her clan, Xuaningxiang turned cold and unfeeling like a reaper. She was willing to do anything and everything to make sure the old geezer died here. Zhuo Fan and Xie Tianyang smiled and launched their own attacks. Fire, wind, and lightning combined at their strongest into an overpowering strike that threatened to consume the seventh elder. Even the calm and collected seventh elder was starting to feel fear. He hastily lifted the centipede chain and lashed. Boom! A huge explosion shook the entire second area and even the sky seemed to collapse. Some 4th-level spiritual beasts even fled. The seventh elder, who was caught in the middle, was blasted 12 meters with his hair and beard singed as he spat blood. But this time, the blood evaporated before it touched the ground. It was proof of the intensity of the attack that pierced his inner organs. With such a heavy wound, just one more and he'd be done for. For the first time, the seventh elder panted with fear in his eyes. Not even he could foresee that the array needed just the girl to flip out for unleashing its full power. But he understood that he would not be able to take more of such attacks. He's on his last leg. Ninga Xie Tianyang, get ready. We'll finish him off. Zhuo Fan laughed as he made another hand sign. But a sudden green panther beat him and Xie Tianyang to the punch. All Zhuo Fan saw was Xuaningxiang going crazy and making signs on and on as she raved, he has to die, he must die. Damn, this girl has lost it. I managed to spur her on, but now she is too far gone. Her only thought is to kill the old goat, even disregarding cooperation with her allies. Her action was limiting the array's power. The seventh elder noticed this weakness and smiled as he charged for Xuaningxiang. He was only facing a wind panther and without the other 2 elements, he could breeze through it. With a swing of the centipede chain, the panther was no more. Quickly help Ningao. Zhuo Fan panicked as he formed hand signs alongside Xie Tianyang. Once again lightning and fire came at the seventh elder. Yet such lack of cooperation lost the array's advantage and the seventh elder dealt with it easily. He flung the centipede chain, removing this nuisance, and appeared before Xuaningxiang. But she sank in, making hand signs. The seventh elder snorted and clutched her neck, lifting her off the ground. Xuaningxiang began suffocating and her hand slowed down. Crazy girl, you almost had me killed. Consider yourself lucky since you still have some use, or I'd have killed you already. Ningya. Zhuo Fan and Xie Tianyang stood up with worry. The seventh elder mocked them, what are you brats called anyway? Sit tight, I will deal with you in a moment. Zhuo Fan clenched his fists. Cough, cough, cough. Xuaningxiang coughed, looking at Zhuo Fan with pleading eyes, kill him, don't let him harm my father. Hehehe, what a caring daughter. You're still thinking about your father? Too bad these two brats have no way of killing me. Once I get back, I'll make sure to wipe the Shui clan for good. Tears glistened down Shui Ningxiang's cheeks. Xie Tianyang's heart hurt and roared in anger. Hell Valley Elder, does one of your stature even know what shame is to raise your hand on a defenseless girl? Hehehe, there's no such thing as shame in a demonic cultivator's vocabulary. The seventh elder cackled and turned to Zhuo Fan. Brat, you're just like this old man, stirring this girl's will to fight with a few words. I would have taken you as my disciple if not for us being enemies. You hurt my friend, so you must die by my hands. Zhuo Fan's tone was irreproachable. Xie Tianyang, get ready to strike. But Ning also agreed, as Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with a hard look. Xie Tianyang felt cold as he looked at Zhuo Fan, then saw the pleading eyes of Shui Ningxiang and sighed. This old man must die, or he will slaughter the Shui clan and Ning won't ever find peace, even in death. Xie Tianyang then yelled as he made hand signs. The lightning dragon roared as it encroached on the seventh elder. Zhuo Fan, with his red eyes, also shouted and the phoenix behind him spread its wings. This was the strongest power they managed to unleash through their cooperation. But to all this, the seventh elder's answer was disdain. I have already figured out this array. With that wind, just you two are nothing. Xie Tianyang gnashed his teeth. Would our full power attack amount to nothing? Would we meet our end at his hands? Furthermore, Ning's clan would be doomed. But Zhuo Fan revealed an evil grin, who said we lacked wind? His hands shifted through the signs and the seventh elder was swallowed by a tornado, turning his immediate surrounding into a wind prison. Then came the lightning dragon and fire phoenix. Boom! Fire and lightning mixed, erupting in a spectacular fashion on contact with the tornado, burning everything within into nothing. This display of power was twice as strong as their best attack. This time the elder should be dead. Xie Tianyang watched it all at a loss. How what? How the wind appeared? Zhuo Fan smiled, unlike someone who just lost a friend. I told you before that I can't control the fifth grade array by myself and need all three of us to work together, right? Well, I lied. That seventh elder would have seen through you and I couldn't have deceived him in the end. What all was a lie? Xie Tianyang stammered. Zhuo Fan smiled. Insidious demon is beyond sharp, he is Hell Valley sage. If I fight him alone, defeat is certain. So I arranged for you two to work with me in controlling the array and help conserve power. But this wasn't without its weakness. Us three had to be in full cooperation to unleash its greatest power. Him being the insidious demon, he would find this out with ease and would target the weakest among us. It's clear Ninga is that person and he would attack her. But he would have never guessed Ninga was the bait I laid out for him. So, he fell right into my trap. Why you're saying that you had planned on giving up on Ninga from the start? Xie Tianyang gasped. Zhuo Fan felt like a stranger to him. He still recalled how Zhuo Fan yelled at Ninga, I won't leave anyone behind, his eyes filled with righteousness. Was it all an act? What's with that look? Zhuo Fan sneered, didn't you say to leave Ninga behind and flee, that she was a burden? I only thought of a more appropriate use of this burden. What of your promise to her? Xie Tianyang swallowed dryly, I heard you promised Ninga to take her outside the city. Zhuo Fan waved it off, the result's the same, be it living or otherwise. Seeing Zhuo Fan's casual manner, Xie Tianyang felt numb and a chill crawled up his spine. After working together for over a month, he had thought that he somewhat understood Zhuo Fan's character. But now it felt like he was talking to a stranger. Such sheer cruelty made him, a seventh layer of bone-tempering expert, feel more fear than facing a radiant stage expert. But laughter came from amidst the Thunderflame Gale prison. Ha 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 kid, you're just like me. Selfish, cruel, heartless, and won't even hesitate to use your own men. Even I'm feeling a bit afraid of you. Boom! The Thunderflame Gale prison blew away with a loud noise to reveal the sinister smiling seventh elder. Yet now he held another centipede chain in his hand, this one black. The two chains formed a helix around him, sparing his life from the dreadful attack. But even so, his body was littered with burn marks, and one could even see the bone in some places as blood seeped out. It was obvious that he survived because of these chains. And that too against the true power of the Thunderflame Gale array. After spitting some burning blood, the seventh elder gasped, but his wicked eyes never left Zhuo Fan for a moment. Kid, I have always been quick to pick up on things related to my enemies everywhere I went, but today you almost had me killed. I have to admit, I never met such dreadful brat in my life. Zhuo Fan looked over to see Shui Ningxiang unconscious at his feet. But she wasn't dead. Perhaps the chain helix protected her the same way it protected the elder. But it wasn't like Xuefan cared if she lived or died. He just kept staring at the black centipede chain. You have another 4th grade demonic treasure? Hehehe, I used to have only one. The 7th elder joined the 2 centipede chains together to form a black and white chain. This 4th grade demonic treasure. Yin-yang chains are of one body. I usually attack with the yang chain and use the yin chain to kill my enemy at the right time. But to save myself today, you forced me to reveal my yin chain. You should be proud of that. Even profound heaven experts only figure out the truth at the moment of their deaths. Xuefan gnashed his teeth. The insidious demon title fits you like a glove. You were willing to suffer a heavy wound just to keep this move hidden. But of course. The 7th elder coughed blood twice, but his face still retained the sinister smile. With how the world is filled with lies and schemes, I prefer to keep my strongest move hidden. That is why my ploys always succeed while the ones against me fail. But today is the exception. The 7th elder's eyes flashed and threw the yang chain at Xuefan and the yin chain at Xia Tianyang as he roared, "Too bad you're out of tricks and can't beat me." I beg to differ. Xuefan smirked and made a hand sign, making a bloody light fly out of Xueningshang towards the 7th elder. The elder was seriously hurt and the chains were far away. Xuefan watched him like a hawk just to find if he also had a defensive demonic treasure. This way he could put Blood Infant to good use. In his sorry state, if Blood Infant was to get inside the 7th elder, he'd be refined without even a means to resist. This was Xuefan's true killing move. Even the Thunderflame Gale prison was only used as bait to reveal all the elder's cards. Xuefan refused to believe a man with the insidious demon fame had no hidden means to save himself. Demonic creature. On the other hand, the 7th elder was startled by the bloody light. He now figured out what Xuefan really intended when he said Xueningshang was the bait. It wasn't just to trap him in the Thunderflame Gale prison but to also hide a killing move. With how close he was to her, he had no way of dodging. Insidious Demon had to admire Xuefan's cunning mind for beating him at every turn. Xuefan was expectant of victory as he smiled. "It's over, 7th elder. This fight is my win." Suddenly, the 7th elder's yang chain pierced through Xuefan's chest. He felt his heart being crushed. A large hole was left behind on his body, with pieces of his heart here and there. This is impossible. Xuefan was confident that the Blood Infant would gain control of the 7th elder once it entered him, also stopping the yang chain's attack. But the truth was, the chain never stopped. Xuefan even felt his organs withering and seeping life force. This wasn't caused by the chain, but by Blood Infant's injury. Puking blood, Xuefan watched in shock as Blood Infant hung behind the 7th elder. A flash of silver revealed a needle impaling Blood Infant's chest. 3rd grade demonic treasure, Twisted Needle. The 7th elder sneered at Xuefan and pulled back the twisted needle into his elbow. Blood Infant collapsed and Xuefan fell to his knees. His eyes were filled with dread. He couldn't believe he just lost. Bam! A sound was heard from the side. Xia Tianyang struggled for his life, but the yin chain lashed over his chest and he was now spitting blood. It was thanks to his spiritual armor that he was still breathing. Ignoring the rest, the 7th elder walked to Xuefan calmly. "Kid, I am known as the insidious demon. How can anyone outsmart me?" The 7th elder watched the dying Xuefan. "You're good, real good. Your schemes even make me feel fear. In a decade or two, you will become an outstanding demonic cultivator. Not even the #1 sage in Tianyu can compare to you. A pity you won't live so long, because I am afraid of what you'll become. You are the first to ever make me feel this way." He was about to land the finishing blow. "You might die at my hand, but do not feel bad. Our cunningness is about the same, but I am stronger. In front of true power, all tricks, all methods are moot." The 7th elder's palm came from above and Xuefan could even hear the whistling wind. He didn't want to die, but he had nothing left to fight with. A loss was a loss, be it in power or cunningness. And the one to lose died. But he had so many things he wanted to do. So what? The loser never had a choice to begin with. Closing his eyes, Xuefan took one last breath and blacked out. Roar! A sudden roar shook the entire All-Beast mountain range and the 7th elder's palm stopped an inch above Xuefan's head. Along with the roar, a wave of flames came to engulf everything. It swallowed trees and left empty husks behind. The 7th elder was startled. Looking towards the 3rd area, he said with uncertainty, "Why is this monster coming to the 2nd area?" Taking another look at the hopeless trio, he gnashed his teeth and fled, even disregarding the diamond sand. A bird cry soon followed and the skies darkened. A huge birdwing trailed above, overshadowing the earth. The spiritual beasts shivered in their caves. The huge bird's wing burned blue and each flap sent sparks everywhere. Wherever the sparks landed, flames torched all of it into nothing. The previously lush forest was now reduced to ash after the bird passed. Not even bones were left of the fourth-level spiritual beasts touched by the flames. The huge bird flew for a while then left, but the forest beneath it was no more. Zhuo Fan and the other two were lying unconscious among the ashes. Some spiritual beasts passed by, but finding them dead, they left. In fact, it was thanks to the energy-concealing pill that hid their auras. Cough, cough, cough. With a light cough, Xuaningxiang strained her eyes open, but shock swept her heart. Why is the forest gone and only ash remained? The seventh elder couldn't have done this. She looked around in haste for Zhuo Fan and Xie Tianyang and saw them lying unconscious. Zhuo Fan had the most critical injury, bleeding from the hole in his chest. He wasn't too far from breathing his last. Brother Zhuo. Xuaningxiang was on Zhuo Fan with a cry and turned him over to see the fist-sized wound in his chest which went all the way through his back. His face paled by the second and his temperature dropped. Tears welled in Xuaningxiang's eyes and fell along with her anxious voice. Brother Zhuo, wake up, wake up. Perhaps it was the soft tears or the incessant shouts grating on his ears that made Zhuo Fan crack his eyelids. L1 T-Lagoon witnessed the first publication of this chapter on NOVROLB1N. Brother Zhuo, you're awake. Xuaningxiang was glad. Zhuo Fan moved his lips but was too weak to even let out words. Watching her tear-stained face, Zhuo Fan took a deep breath and squeezed his last drop of energy into pointing, but his hand soon fell limp. Xuaningxiang caught his gesture and saw blood infant in a pool of blood. You want me to bring it over? She asked. Zhuo Fan blinked weakly, the only thing he could do in his current state. Xuaningxiang thus marched to blood infant and was soon back with it in her arms. She then placed it on the hole in Zhuo Fan's chest. Blood infant flashed red and was back in Zhuo Fan's body. He let out a breath as his complexion started improving slightly. His and blood infant's lives were shared, so much so that its wound was far more important than his own injury. As long as blood infant was fine, him suffering heavy wounds would matter little. But now blood infant's life hung by a thread. Without his blood essence, he could only keep it alive for a short while longer. He was in a worse condition too and had no way to save it. But as blood infant was kept alive, a bit of energy returned to him. Be blood, Zhuo Fan whispered hoarsely. Xuaningxiang paused a moment, then cut her wrist with a dagger and brought her hand to Zhuo Fan's lips. The girl's blood dripped in Zhuo Fan's mouth and he slowly recovered a bit more energy. Xuaningxiang let out a relieved sigh and even sported a faint smile. But Zhuo Fan suddenly bit her wrist, sucking the blood out. Xuaningxiang braced through the pain and let him have his fill. Time passed but Zhuo Fan's appetite didn't drop. Xuaningxiang's face paled and was even getting woozy. She knew it was from the blood loss but she didn't stop him. When Zhuo Fan finally let go and gasped for fresh air, he saw Xuaningxiang's pale countenance and felt complicated. Thank you. Zhuo Fan now had the strength to speak, thanks to the blood. Xuaningxiang smiled. She was feeling weak but her smile looked mesmerizing to Zhuo Fan. Recalling his previous act, his heart began to feel guilt. With a thought, a blue bottle flashed in his hand. Ningo, these are third-grade heart-protecting pills. Give me one, you take the second and give the third to the kid if he isn't dead. Xuaningxiang nodded and fed the first pill to him. She checked Xie Tianyang and found him alive. Excited, she fed him a pill but saved hers. Zhuo Fan was laid on the ground but his heart was clear. Ningo, you are also hurt. Why aren't you taking it? Ningo shook her head. It's only a scratch. This pill is too precious and it's better used on you too. Ha ha ha, not in the least. It came from Veiled Dragon Pavilion anyway, so don't worry. Zhuo Fan smiled. He came to All Beast Mountain Range prepared, not only in spirit stones but also in pills. Since the Imperial family and Veiled Dragon Pavilion were providing the Luo clan with stuff, he had everything besides the truly rare pills. Some of his pills were something not found even in the entire Tianyu Empire, refined by yours truly. I didn't think I'd use them so fast. Ningo, take it, it's yours. A snort came and Xuaningxiang turned towards Xie Tianyang. He was also worse for wear, not life-threatened like Zhuo Fan, but he couldn't move still. He would need 3 to 5 months to heal. Zhuo Fan couldn't budge but neither could he. Even so, his fear of Zhuo Fan wasn't that high and said with a clipped tone, Ningo, this big brother Zhuo wanted to use you as bait from the start. This is his just deserts. When Zhuo Fan exposed his plan, she was already unconscious in the Thunderflame Gale prison explosion. But hearing it now, she was startled and looked at Zhuo Fan with the hope that he'd deny. She refused to believe that brother Zhuo, who stood by her side for over a month, would be so cruel as to throw her away. She hoped this was a misunderstanding, that Zhuo Fan would refute Xie Tianyang's claims. But Zhuo Fan remained silent, and his cold eyes refused to meet hers for the first time. With tears welling, Xuaningxiang forced her sorrow down, but her heart felt like being stabbed with a knife. She didn't realize when, but Zhuo Fan meant a lot to her. She didn't feel hate for being cast out, but pain. Sensing her pain, Zhuo Fan hesitated. It's fine, you don't need to say anything. Xuaningxiang wiped her nose and forced a smile. I know Brother Zhuo is brave and smart, that all went according to your plan. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. She whipped her head around and left. I'm going to look for branches and make a stretcher. We can't keep staying here. Watching her walk away like nothing had happened, Xie Tianyang rose an eyebrow. Hey, Ninga, you're going to forgive him just like that? He is hurt and can't move. Now's your chance for revenge. Yet Xuaningxiang didn't return. Xie Tianyang wanted to yell again, but then Zhuo Fan's snort came. Zip it. If you want to die, just ask. Humph, you have it worse than me, let's see you try. Xie Tianyang put up a tough front, but fear not his heart because of the naked killing intent laced in Zhuo Fan's words. Seeing with his own eyes how Zhuo Fan had fought the seventh elder, he knew the horror Zhuo Fan could unleash. Despite losing, Zhuo Fan played with that insidious demon to such a state. He felt both fear and hatred towards Zhuo Fan. Hate for his unfeeling heart to his friends and fear from his cunning mind. But then a new feeling triumphed them both, something the genius disciple of Sword Marquis About never felt before. Xuaningxiang was soon back with wood and made 2 stretchers. When she placed them both on each, Zhuo Fan wanted to apologize but swallowed his words when he saw her avoiding him. Rumble! With a thunderclap, the rain started pouring down on the ashen forest and helped the saplings grow. Xuaningxiang tied the stretchers with rope and trudged through the mud. Because of the heavy rain, the rough mountain path, and the blood loss, she fell down again and again. But she pressed on like a machine, dragging them ever forward. The 3 never spoke a word the entire time. Even Xie Tianyang's complaints about taking revenge fell silent. The 2 felt worse and worse the more they saw Xuaningxiang's pale face as she pulled them. Xie Tianyang was the first to mention casting her away for being weak. Zhuo Fan went a step further by rejecting the idea in a dignified manner, only to throw her out as bait not much later. And now the 2 were in dire straits, useless for months to come. But Xuaningxiang's heart remained steady and firm, never abandoning them. The 2 felt heavy in their hearts from the huge debt they had for her. How can we ever repay it? On the muddy and slick mountain road, a bump appeared and the burrowing mouse revealed itself. It ran towards Xuaningxiang as soon as it came out. Now that she saw the little guy, her smile came back on her face, since losing it when she found of Zhuo Fan's betrayal. Afraid of Critter's suffering, she drove it away before their fight with the seventh elder. But now it came back. The little guy was jumping around her leg and joy then skipped ahead of her. Xuaningxiang guessed that it was showing the way and dragged the stretchers to a cave. Happy, she pulled the 2 people into the cave for sheltering from the rain and healing their wounds. But Zhuo Fan looked around once and shouted in panic, "We can't stay here, we have to leave now." Xuaningxiang turned to Zhuo Fan with a start. Zhuo Fan spoke while gazing at the weeds around the cave. That is soothing grass. That's perfect, it can help relieve fatigue. What is wrong with that? Xie Tianyang asked. Zhuo Fan said annoyed. That's true for humans, but for spiritual beasts it has a calming effect that attracts nearby spiritual beasts. Xie Tianyang was anxious, that means trap. Zhuo Fan nodded, yes, a trap made by predators. The burrowing mouse was drawn here and led us right to it. Curses, you can just bury your head and run, but we'll have to suffer. Why had I taken you in any way? Xie Tianyang snapped at the critter. He wasn't as brash usually, but he was now hurt and powerless to resist an attack. In this grim state, falling in a trap was the last straw. To escape from the seventh elder yet die in a beast's trap was something this genius disciple couldn't accept. The burrowing mouse squeaked a few times with a lowered head. Xuaningxiang hugged it to her chest and spoke softly to Zhuo Fan. What do we do now? She had ill feelings towards Zhuo Fan, but she always turned to him for help when the going got tough. What else? Run. Xie Tianyang cut him off. Zhuo Fan asked hastily, what time is it? Xuaningxiang looked outside the cave, but the rain clouds blocked the sky. She shook her head. I'm not sure. A day must have passed by now. Damn. Zhuo Fan said gravely, the energy concealing pill must have worn off and we are now easy targets. I'm guessing beasts must be coming here in droves. What? Xie Tianyang jumped. You said, droves. Zhuo Fan nodded. The truly strong spiritual beasts don't stoop so low to use this trick. Only low-level spiritual beasts place traps and move in packs. Just then, along with the sound of rain, roars of beast echoed, and several pairs of cruel eyes fixed on the cave's mouth. A rough look would spot around 1,000 heads. Bloodthirsty wolves. Zhuo Fan sighed. We're finished. Bloodthirsty wolves are second-level spiritual beasts, but with their numbers, they must have a third-level wolf king among them. Not even a fourth-level spiritual beast would dare to mess with them. Xia Tianyang saw the faint green eyes getting ever closer. Oh, woe is me. Heaven must be jealous of my outstanding talent and wants to pluck me. Xuaningxiang looked worried while Zhuo Fan had his trademark unflappable expression. Xia Tianyang. Zhuo Fan said, give your sword to Ning Ai. Ning Ai? Xia Tianyang didn't understand. My star sword may be a 4th-grade spiritual weapon, but Ning Ai is in the qi condensation stage. It's not enough to deal with those savage beasts. He spoke of the difference in cultivation and leveled his eyes at Zhuo Fan. She isn't like you, fighting bone tempering and profound heaven experts while in qi condensation stage. Zhuo Fan smiled. Ning Ai won't be fighting the beasts, but escaping their encirclement. He took out a bottle from his ring but didn't have the strength to lift it. Ning Ai, take this energy-concealing pill. Zhuo Fan spoke calmly. Use it to leave All Beast Mountain range once you break the encirclement, but don't go to your clan. Leave the city. Xia Tianyang now understood Zhuo Fan's plan. So he too took out his star sword. Their debt to Ning Ai was too great, and at this point, they were nothing but dead weights. Seeing their firm gazes, Xuaningxiang took the sword and ran outside. Both Xia Tianyang and Zhuo Fan revealed a smile, feeling a weight being lifted off their chests. This way, we can repay her kindness. Even if we die, we can do it free of regrets. Xia Tianyang mumbled. Zhuo Fan spoke blandly. I don't care about returning favors, just felt unwilling to die like this. I just don't want this girl to keep looking after me. Humph, how cold-hearted. Xia Tianyang snapped. After that short banter, the two were at peace, waiting for the bloodthirsty wolves to devour them. But then wails came, followed by blood splattering on both of them. When they looked towards the mouth of the cave, they were shocked to see Xuaningxiang standing guard at the entrance. Some bloodthirsty wolves were circling around trying to enter but were cut down by her. With her standing guard and this being the only entrance, the wolves were kept at bay. Ning Ai, what are you doing? Zhuo Fan shouted. Xuaningxiang slashed and 3 more wolves fell. She looked back with a shy smile. See, with me standing here, they will never get in. Idiot, those are nothing but cannon fodder. The Wolf King wouldn't care if they died. He's trying to tire you out before killing you. Zhuo Fan cursed, but his eyes were filled with worry. Xuaningxiang smiled. That Wolf King is a beast uncaring for his pack, but you are my most important friends. I won't abandon you. She killed another 2 incoming wolves. Because of the blood loss and the fatigue of carrying the 2, she felt weak and pale. She was shaking with the wind and seemed like she might collapse any second. Yet her eyes were headstrong. Xuaningxiang slashed, again and again, piling wolf corpses at her feet in a pool of blood. Her brows were drenched, her breathing haggard, her arms numb, but her back remained straight against the incoming storm. Watching her frail body, Zhuo Fan's eyes filled with warmth. He closed his eyes, not wishing to see the end as pain laced his heart. Zhuo Fan. Xia Tianyang yelled, I just realized, we're both damn bastards. And Zhuo Fan groaned a response. Xia Tianyang looked over to Xuaningxiang braving outside and he also closed his eyes. Xuaningxiang let out a cry as a wolf bit her wrist when her strength failed her. It then pinned her to the ground. Then another wolf pounced on her other hand. She wanted to get up and keep fighting but felt too weak to move. She had surpassed the limits of her body long ago and was now powerless to deal with 2 weak wolves. She couldn't even feel the blood flowing out from the bite wounds on her hands. Zhuo Fan and Xia Tianyang knew this was going to happen but kept their eyes closed. They wanted to be spared from the sight of the girl getting mauled. While 2 wolves pinned her arms, the rest were closing in as Xuaningxiang's breathing grew faint. If they could, the 2 in the cave would have covered their ears. In celebration of a successful hunt, the pack howled and the Wolf King, 3 times bigger than the rest, strutted before Xuaningxiang. Licking its fangs, the Wolf King howled and opened its maw to ravage Xuaningxiang. With her eyes blacking out, all she could see were vague shapes. Zhuo Fan and Xia Tianyang still had their eyes closed. Roar! Just as the Wolf King was about to bite her, a sudden roar echoed from deep within the All Beast Mountain range. Zhuo Fan and Xia Tianyang blanked out the moment it reached them. The 1,000 bloodthirsty wolves pack collapsed one after the other, with only the Wolf King staggering from fear. But before it could retreat, a flame swept over the wolves, not even leaving ash behind. Even the Wolf King couldn't survive and disappeared from this world. Unbelievable enough, Zhuofan's party survived unharmed, though unconscious. Zhuofan. Zhuofan vaguely heard someone calling him and opened his eyes. What is with this foggy place? Where am I? He looked around. But then it occurred to him he was heavily wounded, so how could he move? Suddenly, two blue flames ignited. It fused together to reveal a burning blue-robed figure floating high above. Is your name Zhuofan? I heard the two kids call you as such. The figure smiled. His voice fit a sturdy middle-aged man, but it wasn't clear from his appearance. Zhuofan was suspicious. Who are you? You don't need to know. The figure replied, this is my domain, and here, I ask the questions. Zhuofan, why have you come to Allbeast Mountain Range? The blue figure asked. Zhuofan thought for a moment. To capture a spiritual beast and make it my demonic creature. What spiritual beast? 6th level spiritual beast, Thunder Skylark. Why? Zhuofan's eye swiveled. Why else? To increase my power. Boom! A loud noise resounded and Zhuofan felt like his head was about to explode. Ha ha ha, the figure laughed. Boy, we are inside your consciousness. It's easy for me to tell when you lie. Zhuofan looked at the figure in fear. He could enter others' consciousness on his own. Such power went beyond Radiant Stage, maybe even above the mortal domain. Are you from the sacred domain? Zhuofan gasped. He never thought that it was possible to run into a sacred domain's expert in the mortal domain. The figure was also surprised that Zhuofan knew about sacred domain and nodded. You aren't normal to know of sacred domain, to apply ancient arrays, and refine the blood infant. Zhuofan was shocked to find that all his actions were monitored. This man even knew of blood infant. Matters regarding patriarch blood demon were decades old and very few people knew of them even in the sacred domain. If he hadn't stumbled upon the 9 Serenities Secret Records, he would be none the wiser. But, who exactly are you? I said it before, only I ask the questions here. The figure replied coldly, why do you want the Thunder Skylark? Speak the truth. Zhuofan was pensive, but found no way out. I want to go to Lightning Canyon in search for the Heavenly Emperor's remnant. For that, I need the Thunder Skylark to block the purple lightning. What? The blue figure never anticipated such an answer but laughed in glee. Ah ha ha ha, good. Great even. That is a good place. You should definitely go. The figure vanished and popped right in front of Zhuofan's face. Zhuofan was startled but didn't pick up any bad intentions from him. The figure then tapped Zhuofan's forehead and a blue flame seeped in. Zhuofan only felt gentle energy from his forehead. Ha 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 boy, we are fated, so here's a gift. I hope you can help me in the future. The figure was gone but his words rang in Zhuofan's ears. You can find the Thunder Skylark 3,000 miles into the third area. Do your best to catch it. Wait. Zhuofan sat up with a start. A ray of sunshine shone through the cave's mouth and forced him to cover his eyes. To his surprise, he found that he could actually move. Although still weak, he was mostly recovered. Inspecting himself in detail, he found the blood infant laying depressed in his dantian, but its life was no longer hanging by a thread. Even its eyes were trembling on the verge of waking up. Being shocked was an understatement. Zhuofan knew the expert he met last night was someone who rose above the mortal domain. Or he wouldn't have had the ability to heal his wounds overnight along with blood infants. But why did he choose me? Zhuofan rubbed his forehead, recalling that the man had planted something there. But his weak self didn't allow him to see clearly what it was. He shook his head in the end. It doesn't matter, anyway he saved me. Whatever his reasons are, I will figure them out sooner or later. With his current strength, what could he do against that man? Mocking himself, he realized that he was overthinking things sometimes. It had to do with the fact that he was in the 6th layer of chi condensation with the heart of an Emperor stage expert. What a pain. So, his current objective was to boost his strength. The strong had the final say in everything. He sighed as he looked at the incoming sunshine. Despite the somber feeling exuding from the burned trees, the sun brought a ray of hope. A groan interrupted his musing and Zhuofan found Xuaningxiang's weak figure in a pool of blood. He rushed to her and fed a heart-protecting pill. A gentle yuan qi traveled within her body and Zhuofan breathed easy. The girl's wounds were only skin-deep. She had overused her yuan qi in her fight against the bloodthirsty wolves and needed just a few days to recover. But the pale face of Xuaningxiang brought another wave of worry in his heart. He then started to remove the dirt from her face. Feeling his rough hand, Xuaningxiang cracked her eyes open and showed a sweet smile. Brother Zhuo, are we dead? Rest easy, we are alive and well. Liar, how are you able to move when you were so hurt? Xuaningxiang mumbled, but at least we died together. and the girl faded into unconsciousness at the last word. Zhuo Fan watched her peaceful expression and carried her inside the cave to lay her next to the soothing grass. It was the best item in relieving fatigue for humans. Now he was standing beside the unconscious Xie Tianyang with a not-so-friendly face. "Yo, get up, I say." Zhuo Fan kicked him lightly, twice for good measure, but he was still as a rock. Zhuo Fan sneered and swung his leg way back before kicking with enough oomph on Xie Tianyang's ass. Ah! A wail that shook the heavens and the forest was heard. It even frightened the spiritual beasts around. "I say, what's with this ghastly yell? Trying to wake the heavens? The Albi's mountain range doesn't lack dreadful monsters, you know." Xie Tianyang shivered as he reined in his tears. "What is this place? What did I ever do to deserve such cruelty even in death? Is kicking once cruel? You, a sword Marquis Abodian master, have seen nothing yet." Zhuo Fan smiled at Xie Tianyang's shocked face. Xie Tianyang was startled seeing Zhuo Fan. "Did you kick me? Why the hell, we clearly died together, so why can you hit me?" Zhuo Fan grinned. "If we're dead, all of us would be equals. Too bad, we are alive and kicking. And since you weren't moving." "What, we're alive?" Xie Tianyang stopped listening after that and left. "Ah ha ha ha, it's the same cave. We are alive." But then his mood soured, eyeing Zhuo Fan up and down before yelling, "Oh, why are you able to move while I can't? You had it far worse than me and your cultivation is weaker too." Zhuo Fan shrugged and perked an eyebrow, exasperating the self-entitled genius disciple. Xie Tianyang's lip quivered as he wailed in frustration, "Freak!" Not for the life of him could he comprehend how Zhuo Fan was jumping around after having his life hanging by a thread just 2 days ago. Even he, a bone-tempering expert, would need 2 months of recovery to be able to stand. He was vexed enough knowing that Zhuo Fan was stronger than him, despite their realm difference, and better skilled than him, despite their differences in background. Now though, this damn punk showed a miracle, jumping back on his feet in no time at all. How can one even bloody compare? It's like being left light years behind. "Zhuo Fan, tell me the truth. Who the heck are you?" Xie Tianyang spat. Zhuo Fan lost his smile and patted Xie Tianyang's shoulder, a human of course, though just slightly above average. Xie Tianyang was pissed off by Zhuo Fan's attitude. But his bad state didn't help him vent. And even if he could move, Zhuo Fan's array would just splatter him into pieces. This made bitter tears flow down his cheeks. A genius disciple's pride was crushed completely. Nonetheless, Zhuo Fan moving about had its upside. He could set up an array to defend them. Xie Tianyang had nothing to say to that. It brought far more advantage with Zhuo Fan recovered than if it was him instead. His cultivation only helped protect himself in such a place, let alone others. Spirit stones flew out of his ring and Zhuo Fan set up an ancient first-grade concealing array. At that moment, the cave disappeared from this place and not even a 6th-level spiritual beast would find it even if they passed through. The trio could finally heal in peace. Xuaningsheng woke up 3 days later and was wild with joy knowing that they weren't dead. Then she wondered where those wolves went and why they didn't eat the trio. Xie Tianyang was unclear about this too, but Zhuo Fan frowned, finding it tied to the expert he met in his consciousness. It was in this manner the trio recouped for 3 months. Zhuo Fan was back to full health while Xie Tianyang could now exert 70% of his power. Xuaningsheng recovered long ago and spent her time playing with the burrowing mouse. Both of them were happy seeing her smile again, thinking of her like a little sister. Xuaningsheng too started to feel more dependent on the two. Whoosh! 100 meters away from the cave, Xie Tianyang hacked a rock as he smiled toward Xuaningsheng not far away. He clearly recovered to 80%. Xuaningsheng clapped excitedly alongside the burrowing mouse. Zhuo Fan walked over with a smile. "A nice power you have there. You should enter the 8th layer of bone tempering stage soon. Didn't you also enter the 7th layer of qi condensation after your wounds healed?" Xie Tianyang clipped. "Besides, Zhuo Fan, how can your eyes be that good to detect me breaking through before I do?" Xuaningsheng waved her hand to placate them. Why are you always arguing when you meet each other? You weren't like this before." "Isn't it his fault?" Xie Tianyang stuck out his chest and cursed Zhuo Fan. "After all this time, I still can't forgive this brat for using Ningguo as bait. How can I not be pissed? What arguing? I'm itching to give him a beating." Pot calling the kettle black. Who was it that said to dump her and stall the 7th elder? Zhuo Fan countered. "I never." Xie Tianyang was at a loss, but soon recovered his courage. "I didn't know Ningguo was so great, alright? Moreover, it's far better than being used as bait. I'm a demonic cultivator. It's normal to be more immoral than a righteous cultivator like you." "Immoral? You're a bloody criminal by comparison. Seeing Zhuofan and Xie Tianyang quarreling over her, Xuaningsheng gestured for them to stop. Come on, don't argue, it's all in the past. I don't care anymore, so why are you bringing it up? No, I want to give you justice. Xie Tianyang grabbed her shoulders while glaring at the smiling Zhuofan. It's all right, we are friends who braved through life and death together. It's water under the bridge. Xuaningsheng showed a smile at the two and extended a pinky. Xie Tianyang smiled wryly and was hesitant in extending his pinky, but he did nonetheless. He was followed by an indifferent Zhuofan. The three pinkies touched and they started to feel warm and fuzzy inside. Finding a close friend in life was hard, but finding one to brave death alongside oneself was even harder. From now on, they would never abandon each other, no matter what. Zhuofan suspected he'd be hard-pressed to find any closer friends in this life. As they took back their respective fingers, Zhuofan smiled. Now that we have recovered, we will each go our own way. Startled, the two didn't understand why he'd say this. Zhuofan shook his head. Sorry, that was my mistake. I want to leave. Xie Tianyang, I'm afraid I can't take her out of the city. Help her in my stead. Brother Zhua, where are you going? Xuaningsheng felt nervous. Zhuofan replied with a determined tone, the third area. What? Xie Tianyang and Xuaningsheng shouted. At first we wanted to avoid the seventh elder by going there, but why would you still want to go? Zhuofan's eyes flashed with guilt. To be honest, it was my objective from the start. I wanted to go together because you were useful. Bastard, you wanted more baits? Xie Tianyang cursed. Zhuofan nodded. Yes, so if you don't want to die, run along. The farther from me the better. As he replied, Zhuofan turned to leave. Wait. Xuaningsheng pulled his hand with a shy smile. Brother Zhua, if you don't consider me as a burden, take me with you. Even if I were to become bait, it is all right as long as I can stay with you. Zhuofan was startled and his heart dropped. Xie Tianyang advised, hey, Ningo, this guy's no good. But Xuaningsheng's gentle eyes only had Zhuofan in them, and so Xie Tianyang also reluctantly chose to put his hands together with theirs. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. You two want to follow me? Yes. Xie Tianyang felt lifeless. But don't misunderstand, I'm not coming to help you but to make sure you don't betray Ning'ai. Zhuofan smiled. With how smart you are, I might go and betray you both. But he didn't voice it. Meeting the two of them could be considered as his fortune. Friends in life and death were hard to find. The forest and Albeast mountain range's third area was so thick it blotted out the sun. It was also packed with vicious spiritual beasts that roared at any passing moment. It painted such a gruesome picture that struck terror in any who were intent in setting foot inside. Suddenly, a low bush stirred despite the lack of wind. Zhuofan's party stuck to the ground as they crawled, making use of the bushes as cover. They did take energy-concealing pills, but unlike the previous areas, if any spiritual beast saw them here, it spelled doom. As such, this was the only viable way to advance, moving at a crawl 3,000 miles inland. With each roar and cry, fear struck, soaking their brows with sweat. Blast it! We'll never get anywhere crawling like this. After half a day of wiggling through 10 miles, Xie Tianyang complained and sat with arms crossed. I'm not doing it anymore. It's too lame. Besides, you think a 5th-level spiritual beast lies at every corner. Fool, get down before it's too late. Zhuofan cursed. Xie Tianyang smirked in disdain. How will that help? With how tall the fauna is here, you think they'll spot us at a glance. Roar! In reply to his disdain, a reverberating roar deafened the trio. They turned to see 5 towering trees being pushed to the ground. A 50-meter-tall black bear appeared. Seeing its meal, the black bear roared with bared fangs and bloodthirsty eyes. 4th-level spiritual beast, Mad Storm Bear. Zhuofan cried as the trio shook in fear. Xie Tianyang was even rooted in place. Before the bear could jump on its prey, a tail thick as a bucket coiled around its body. The bear was squeezed and thrown into the heavens above as its pitiful cry grew faint. When it came back down, a maw opened wide and swallowed it whole. As the maw closed, blood sprayed in the surroundings, forming a pool beneath it. Even Zhuofan felt a shiver of fear. That was a 30-meter-long python with a scarlet crest and rock-hard scales. Its cold eyes flashed on the prowl for the next meal. 5th-level spiritual beast, Diamond Crest Python. Run! Zhuofan yelled as he sped up his crawling and the other two worked to catch up. Even Xie Tianyang disregarded his sorry state and crawled with them. He came face to face to the horrors of this area. One slip and he was a goner. It was plainly obvious why even a radiant stage expert would die here. When the Diamond Crest Python ate the bear, because of its bulk, it didn't notice the trio and left after its meal. Damn you, Zhuofan. I must have been insane for agreeing to come with you to this hell. Xie Tianyang worked his all not only to crawl but also to complain on and on, afraid he would soon lose his life without venting. He was on the verge of tears. He had heard this place was savage, but not to this extent. If he'd try to even stand taller than waist height, he'd soon find danger setting its sights on him. Zhuo Fan mocked, and no one told you to come. Why don't you crawl your way back? Xie Tianyang was looking at the sky. Curses, the sun is setting. Nocturnal spiritual beasts will be on the hunt soon, and crawling won't work against them. I'll be dead in a second. Better stick to Zhuo Fan. He would set up an array and no spiritual beast would wander in. Annoyed, Xie Tianyang had an edge in his voice. Since I'm in the same boat as you, once I wander back it will be plain suicide. Zhuo Fan and Xue Ningxiang shook their heads. Then the trio's schedule was crawling by day and ducking under an array at night. And after a month they finally crawled through 3,000 miles till their limbs and waist went sore. The good news was that the closer they got, the fewer the spiritual beasts spotted. Zhuo Fan knew they entered the territory of those 6th-level spiritual beasts, where no weaker beast would dare step a paw in. In the third area, 6th-level spiritual beasts were kings. If they found some oblivious beastie wandering into their domain, they'd chase it even for 1,000 miles, all to preserve a king's dignity. Especially if humans were involved. Stretching and exhaling, Zhuo Fan felt a bit better. Despite his relaxed manner, Xie Tianyang had his eyes peeled as he cautiously rose to his feet. We can stand here? Zhuo Fan nodded with a smile. On our way here, there were too many eyes and ears on the lookout for any movement, so we crawled to avoid the spiritual beasts. Here though is the domain of 6th-level spiritual beasts. Hiding will be much more effective than crawling in this place. Xie Tianyang finally found safety for the first time in a month and smiled. So it's much safer here than other places? Zhuo Fan arched an eyebrow. You can say that, but we'll die even faster bumping into a 6th-level spiritual beast. Xie Tianyang's smile vanished and his tone held some bite. Then what the hell are we doing here? Tame them? How? Zhuo Fan smiled with confidence. He had considered this point a long time ago. He came to such a deadly place as the third area with a plan. He only needed to slip a bloodworm into the thunder skylark and all was well. But the problem was how. Rumble. Zhuo Fan was cooking up a plan when a sudden noise shook the world. The trio felt the earth shaking beneath their feet. They blinked in shock. This had to be from another devastating clash of spiritual beasts. But throughout their crawling, never had they heard a sound so loud. Not even when 2 5th-level spiritual beasts fought. There could only be one answer. 6th-level spiritual beasts? They shouted in unison. It seems to be coming from that direction. Zhuo Fan ran straight for it while Xie Tianyang yelled nervously, those beasts will tear you to pieces. Zhuo Fan smirked. If one of them was the thunder skylark, it'd be perfect. He'd lay in wait and make use of the perfect opportunity to strike. Xue Ningxiang remained quiet and followed him closely. Wherever Zhuo Fan went, she would be close by. So Xie Tianyang had no choice but to join them. 15 minutes later, the trio heard a thunderclap in the sky and the roaring flames. The three huddled behind a large rock in a small valley and peeked above. But the sight took their breath away. 2 spiritual beasts flew high up, both 6th-level spiritual beasts. One was a deep blue-colored bird with a 15-meter-long body and a wingspan of 20 meters. Lightning traveled along its body as it cracked the air. Despite being smaller in size, even compared with a 5th-level spiritual beast, its every wing beat covered the sky in lightning and wind blades that struck the rocks in the valley to pieces. A 5th-level spiritual beast would be crushed by such display. Thunder Skylark? Zhuo Fan squinted. He didn't lie to me. Thunder Skylark's nest is here. He then turned to the other spiritual beast. It was a flying lion wreathed in scarlet flames. Its mane was on fire and it had 30-meter-long wings of flames, half as long as his body. A flap of its wings sent fire to engulf the skies and burn the whole valley to a crisp. 6th-level spiritual beast, Flaming Lion King. Zhuo Fan's heart tightened. The Flaming Lion King was as powerful as the 7th-level spiritual beast, putting the Thunder Skylark at a disadvantage. He had thought that if the Thunder Skylark was tangled with another 6th-level spiritual beast, he'd play the fisherman and make the bird swallow a bloodworm during the confusion. Pity that it was facing Flaming Lion King. The Thunder Skylark would likely be defeated and killed. But wouldn't that bore a large hole in his plans? No, I have to help it. But how? This savage battle is no different than a Radiant stage expert's fight. Getting involved will only get me killed. Boom! As Zhuo Fan was musing a plan, the 2 beasts clashed again. Flaming Lion King spat a fireball while Thunder Skylark sent a thunderstorm with a flap of its wings intending to crush it. But then Flaming Lion King rammed its huge body into the frail Thunder Skylark. The bird cried out and tumbled around in the air. Zhuofan secretly sighed. Sure enough, the Thunder Skylark was just as adept at using her attribute like the Flaming Lion King, but her body lacked power in contrast. It would die if this went on. Big brother Zhua, can you help the poor birdie? Xuaningxiang turned her puppy eyes to him. Zhuofan was this close to spewing blood. Birdie? Well, it does belong to the swallow type, but it's a spiritual beast nonetheless. Regardless, just how exactly is that thing small? But Xuaningxiang's pleas echoed his thoughts. The Thunder Skylark must survive. Ningyo, we can't just interfere in a battle of 6th-level spiritual beasts. Xuaningxiang felt regret the moment she spoke up. Over these few months, Xia Tianyang never refused any of her wishes. Ignoring the fact that our strength is not nearly enough, just from how fiercely these 6th-level spiritual beasts are clashing, one can tell it is not over food, but territory. You couldn't interfere even if they were people not knowing who is wrong or right. We can't just risk our lives for them. Zhuofan lifted an eyebrow as he gave Xia Tianyang a deeper look. In the end, he comes from the 7 houses and knows what battles between great powers implies. If I didn't need the Thunder Skylark so badly, I wouldn't get involved either. But Xuaningxiang's expression was filled with worry, but that birdie isn't fighting over territory, it's to protect her young. Zhuofan looked again and saw a nest below the Thunder Skylark holding 5 huge eggs. Flaming Lion King was powerful enough, but the Thunder Skylark's speed was astonishing. It could leave just like that if it wanted to, but the Lion King caught it between a rock and a hard place, battering it again and again until it was filled with wounds, all because it was worried about harming her eggs. Now that Zhuofan got the whole picture, he hatched a plan to help the Thunder Skylark. She is one big mother. Zhuofan sighed and Ningyo, worry not. See how I get that birdie out of trouble. Xuaningxiang became overjoyed while Xia Tianyang was skeptical. A hypocrite, since when were you so selfless? This guy has a callous heart and betrays his friends at a drop of the hat. Since when did he start sticking his head out for someone else, a savage beast no less? Oh Xia Tianyang, how can you understand me? I am in fact a man with love in his heart. Wait for a bit, I will need your help soon. Screw you. If you have love, I'm a saint. Xia Tianyang retorted in derision, but then he said in shock, I got it. You want the Thunder Skylark? Zhuofan perked an eyebrow and nodded. Ahahaha, you've started using your head more since teaming up with me. Curses! I almost got used by you again. Xia Tianyang spat. If you want to get the Thunder Skylark, leave me out of it. Zhuofan shrugged, then gave Xuaningxiang a long look. Xuaningxiang nodded and showed her doe eyes as she shook Xia Tianyang's arm. Big brother Xia, go with big brother Zhua. The birdie and her young are so pitiful. Xia Tianyang felt like crying. The birdie is pitiful? One flap from it will tear me apart. Why aren't you feeling sorry for me? Lacking any choice in the matter, Xia Tianyang nodded. He was still feeling guilty for what happened to Xuaningxiang and would agree to any of her requests. At his nod, Xuaningxiang exploded into a sparkling smile and Zhuofan grinned at the side. Zhuofan, watch it. If you throw me away, I will make you pay. Xia Tianyang glared, but Zhuofan just shook his head. Take it easy. When I use someone, I make sure they won't ever get the chance to come back to bite me. What? Xia Tianyang exclaimed. Zhuofan just laughed and patted his shoulder. After warning Xuaningxiang to hide and not get discovered, Zhuofan and Xia Tianyang sneaked towards the eggs. The two were able to sneak thanks to the energy-concealing pill. As the beasts raged, lightning and flames collided, rocking the valley like a boat. Zhuofan and Xia Tianyang crept up cautiously below the raging storm. Each time the boom drew closer, it gripped their hearts in a vice and soaked their brows with sweat. One stray fireball or lightning could become the end for them both. Luckily enough, they reached the eggs without a scratch. Below the Thunder Skylark, it was both the most dangerous and safest place. What now? Xia Tianyang looked above at the flashing figures engaged in a fierce battle. Zhuofan explained his plan with a smile. While the Thunder Skylark isn't paying attention, we will hide the eggs. When it finds out that its eggs are gone, it will no longer fight and rush to search for its young. Since it is faster than the lion, we will thus save its life. Good plan. Xia Tianyang spoke in a low voice and gave him a thumbs up. Zhuofan then indicated to lift the nest together. While the heavens were swept by a storm, 2 bandits were making away with the entire nest from right under everyone's noses. Seeing this, Xuaningxiang sported a wide smile. Suddenly, Flaming Lion King gained altitude, breaking away from the bird while the thunder skylark kept a closer eye on its movements. As Zhuofan was carrying the nest, he found that the shadows on the ground were much bigger and that the sky had turned silent. Startled, he stopped and looked up. He was met with the large eyes of the flaming Lion King. He also noticed that the lion's eyes were ridiculing him. Zhuofan shouted in panic, "That savage found us, run." "But the eggs," Xia Tianyang was nervous. "What eggs? Just throw them." Ignoring Xia Tianyang, Zhuofan tossed the nest and the 5 eggs to the ground. Since they were spiritual beast eggs, they wouldn't break so easily. Startled by Zhuofan's yell, the thunder skylark looked in time to see her 5 young thrown on the ground and rushed in anger. Boom! Then a ball of fire passed close to the thunder skylark. The flaming Lion King wasn't aiming for it but the 5 eggs. With a cry, the thunder skylark flew like lightning and used her body to block the fireball. Zhuofan let out a mental sigh. Not for thunder skylark's sacrifice, but the lion's cunningness. It knew that the thunder skylark was fast as lightning, which proved it difficult to land a heavy blow. But those eggs couldn't move and were the perfect means to cripple the thunder skylark's speed. Attacking what one defended was the best plan. The flaming Lion King laughed in glee and spat another ball of flame. Thunder skylark used her lightning to stop it, but, with the eggs scattered, another ball of fire was closing in on another egg. Thus she was forced to fly all over to defend them. The flaming Lion King, which was hovering above, roared and sneered. "We made it worse. We hastened the thunder skylark's end." Darting back to Xuaningshang, Zhuofan sighed. Despite not liking it, he spoke with determination, "Let's go. If we wait for thunder skylark to die, the crazy lion will come after us." Zhuofan and Xia Tianyang grabbed Xuaningxiang's arm, but she stood rooted to the spot, watching the thunder skylark darting to and fro as tears fell down her cheeks. Zhuofan sighed. He had no way to help the bird now. "Let it go, Ning-ai. We need to leave." Zhuofan furrowed his brows and urged, but Xuaningxiang shook her head. Boom! After fending off 24 fireballs, the thunder skylark let out a mournful cry and fell tired and wounded in a large crater. The flaming Lion King charged with its claw, aiming for the bird's throat. "No!" Xuaningxiang broke away from the two's grasp and rushed to defend the thunder skylark. The cold wind from flaming Lion King's attack fanned her fine black hair. But her eyes remained unwavering. Zhuofan and Xia Tianyang rushed over alarmed. Both forgot that they would soon be 2 more corpses added to the pile, that it wouldn't make a difference. Even Zhuofan lost his calculative mind. The 3 only knew to not abandon the other. "Ningyo, I will accompany you in death." Xia Tianyang roared as he threw himself in front of her. Zhuofan flashed in front of the 2, but his eyes were fixed on the flaming Lion King. He was the demonic emperor. Even in death, he would stare down his enemy. "Dumb humans, your flesh won't stop this king's claw." The flaming Lion King opened its mouth and sneered. As its claw drew close, its killing intent made the trio shiver. But just when the claw was about to touch Zhuofan's face, an azure flame came out of Zhuofan's forehead and a shocking power shrouded the entire all-beast mountain range. The spiritual beasts were left shivering and lowered their proud heads. Even those fighting bent their knees. Flaming Lion King stopped its claw and watched the swaying flame as it trembled in fear.